where do we put this here? DX12 controversy. Oh, really? I didn't click that link in my own story. So apparently, some stuff happened about DirectX 12 this week, guys.
Is it awesome?
Yes.
Have you been
awesome.
sold up the river? Did games found the ship?
Oh, absolutely.
Have you been bamboozled?
It's awesome for somebody.
So let's see if I can give a quick summary so we can actually have a discussion, because I think a lot of people that are listening to this
You're wrong!
hopefully already have read this story. So there's two different stories. There's this one here that I titled PC Gaming Shakeup, Ashes of the Singularity DX12 in the Microsoft Store. And this one goes into some details about that latest version of the Ashes of the Singularity game was released with a new benchmark mode and some new stuff that we were looking forward to testing, including an integrated FCAT overlay. But we ran into some issues, right? So after we got FCAT kind of up and running, I think the GPU testbed just happened to be in its NVIDIA state at that point, which different SSD, different video card. And so we ran FCAT based capture testing on it, and sometimes it worked and sometimes it didn't, and we couldn't quite figure out why. Like sometimes when we turned VSync off in the game engine, VSync would be off in the game, we'd be able to test it, we'd measure frame rates accordingly, etc., and you'd get a graph that looked like this one. All right, uncapped frame rate, VSync off, that's kind of what we're used to seeing in kind of a capture-based, frame rating performance evaluation.
Yep.
However, what occurred, we couldn't figure out why, we went back and forth, but when we went to AMD, we could never get it to go into a true VSync off state. Instead, we got graphs that looked like either this, if we had VSync on, or like this with VSync off, which is not how it's supposed to look. That is a graph that is what you would expect it to look like with VSync on. Instead of having gradual shifts between a frame time of 33, 16 frames per second, or milliseconds, I'm sorry, you get very sudden, instantaneous differences or changes between 33 and 16 millisecond frame times. That's what happens when you either a frame is on there for one refresh cycle or a frame is on there for two refresh cycles, right? And that's kind of the difference you're seeing. What was interesting, though, is that if you look at that, there are some 0 millisecond frame times, which somebody in the comments was complaining because that doesn't mean 0 FPS. It technically means infinite FPS, but that's harder to diagram for me. Yeah. So yes, it's technically it is
what
missing
if you use
a
a
frame.
logarithmic
Well, yeah,
scale?
sure.
It's like a drop frame.
You just need to have it go below the axis.
So after doing a whole lot of research and talking to people at Oxide and talking with people at AMD, NVIDIA, Intel, game developers, Microsoft, whoever, what we're seeing is an interesting. How do I even word this really?
So this game is not running in full screen.
Correct. So
in true full screen.
Yes, there you go. That's a good way to start it out. The way to look at this graph is that while we expect the game to be running in an exclusive full screen mode, it is not. It is instead behaving as if it is acting in a borderless windowed full screen mode.
Or just full screen window mode.
Full screen window. Yeah,
different there are some
things.
games that actually have a mode like this, so that you can have other stuff, on top of the game with the game running in the background on a desktop and stuff.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay, and so I was like, okay, that's kind of weird. And then there's a theory that AMD didn't properly enumerate a feature called FlipX, Flip Exclusive, into their driver for DX12, because in DX11 mode it works fine, and thus, maybe this is just like a driver oversight. More conversations were had, and it's like, this may not actually be an oversight. This may be AMD kind of giving a nod toward the way Microsoft is trying to push some things forward. And by some things, I mean that the Microsoft Store. So the Microsoft Store in Windows 10, and it's been around before that, is... They announced a while ago that they were going to try to integrate some interesting features into, or they actually already had, integrate some interesting features into Windows 10 gaming, right? They have a recording bar. They have the ability to take screenshots. They have the ability to get notifications while you're gaming. The ability to integrate with other, on-screen keyboards and stuff like that. All of those functions that they want to do and that they are doing on games sold through the Microsoft Windows 10 Store require not exclusive full screen usage.
Yeah.
They require a borderless full screen.
Yeah. It needs to stay in like the desktop rendering engine.
Right. And so that's what it is.
Yeah.
These games that get pushed through the Windows Store also have to agree to be to use. They're not agree to. They're forced to use the Windows compositing engine.
Yep.
Which is basically a different way for, instead of the graphics card simply determining when the flip occurs to the display, it basically gives a full frame to the Windows compositing engine, says, here's my latest full frame, you do whatever you want with it. The compositing engine then goes, okay, here's another VSync interval, I'm ready to put it in. Or I need to add some stuff to it, another layer, and now I'll present it up to...
And that's, except for the extra layer thing, that's the same way that any game that ran in a window has worked in the past.
Correct.
It has to comply with whatever the desktop rendering engine is wanting to do, as opposed to the game engine.
And so in the game that runs in a window, or a game that runs in this mode, a full screen window has no tearing.
Right, it's always forced VSync on.
It's always forced VSync. And the no tearing is a positive, right?
I guess.
Horizontal tearing is a negative thing. It's a bad thing, right? That's why G-Sync and FreeSync exist.
But those don't work in this mode.
Not true completely. Okay. G-Sync works, like, for example, Gears of War came out on the Microsoft Store. It apparently works in-game, but not in cutscene. G-Sync, I mean.
G-Sync works, okay.
Yeah. Now, why the difference there, I don't understand. This is interesting, going back to our discussion before the podcast started about, well, if you just present it the normal way, the G-Sync monitor will just handle it all correctly.
Yeah.
Something is happening between those two modes. So the general problem here is, and I'll leave it for you guys to like read the article where there's more of this stuff going on. The issue with Ashes of the Singularity seems like it could be simply a driver bug. Right, it could be simply that AMD did not enumerate something that would allow them to get into an exclusive full screen mode, because the Ashes of the Singularity is not sold through the Microsoft Store. It's sold through Steam, so it's possible that that's just a driver error. However, what this led us into is like, oh yeah, hey, look, there are some games that are going to be coming out from Microsoft Store. There already are games like Tomb Raider, or Rise of the Tomb Raider is out. Gears of War came out this week. Gears of War Ultimate Edition is exclusive to the Microsoft Store. Quantum Break will be out this year, is that right?
This month, I think.
Is it this month?
I think so.
Both on Xbox One and PC, exclusively through the Windows Store. Right, so these are two games now that you are forced into this pathway.
What else does that break? Does SLI work? Does Crossfire work?
So, good questions all around. Microsoft's official stance is like SLI and Crossfire will still work, but the game developer has to integrate support for it.
Differently than it used to be implemented.
I think so.
So instead of NVIDIA being able to load in a profile, that profile essentially needs to be baked into the game.
So you can't fix SLI and Crossfire after the fact.
Well, the game developer could do a patch.
The developer has to do it now.
The developer could, but in theory, maybe NVIDIA and AMD don't have the capability, because one of the other things that's interesting about the whole Windows App Store is that they're sandbox programs.
Which means you might not be able to do like Fraps overlay stuff.
You definitely can't do that.
Okay.
Right. But I'm talking about even like NVIDIA and AMD are going to have difficulty. Like they can't write to the file system.
Oh, so they can't do their capture.
Right. They can't do GeForce Experience doesn't function, or has limited functionality. I don't know if you can just change INI settings in a Windows App Store based games. Like, because if you install you can't.
You can't do INI settings. You can't do modding. You can't add the game to Steam because it doesn't launch from an EXE.
Right. Because like when I installed Gears of War, 55 gigabyte file.
Yeah.
I can't even go into the folder.
You have to like take ownership and crap.
Yeah, you have to like take ownership of the folder to even go into it. Right. And this is all because of security reasons, right? Let me say this, right? So, because I know all this discussion is pooping on Microsoft, right? There are positive things that can occur from this.
Yeah, like Games Windows Live, there was positive things from that.
There could have been, and it didn't turn out to be that way. But like this is just like, I don't want to say this is just another one of those, but it's possible this is what that is.
It's a lot of the kind of reasons.
It is.
That the other stuff didn't catch on.
It is. But so,
like you'd figure they would have learned that lesson before with those other things that didn't catch on.
It seems difficult not to see this as Microsoft trying to shoehorn PC gaming into their mindset of console gaming.
Yeah.
Right. And that's what most people that listen to this show or watch this show or read our website are focused on, is the idea that Microsoft is trying to consoleify your PC. And the PC, because the PC is about openness, it's about being able to run mods, it's about being able to run overlays, it's about being able to choose, I want to buy it on Humble or Origin or Steam or a DRM free method or whatever it happens to be. And if you sell through the Windows Store, you don't do any of that.
Yeah.
Now, the positive takeaway from this is that there are going to be very few games that are Windows Store exclusive.
Sure.
Right? So if you want Rise of the Tomb Raider, don't buy it on the Windows Store. Right? You buy it on Steam.
Yeah, right.
Or Steam. No, you just buy it on Steam.
Especially with the issues right now, I can't even imagine why anybody would buy that game.
I agree.
On the Windows Store.
Right. But there are some people that maybe just don't know.
That would be the only reason why they would buy it there.
You buy a PC. There are people that don't watch these shows and read these websites. They buy a PC that has a video card in it. They see that the store opens up and there's a game listed for the new Tomb Raider. They like Tomb Raider. They download it. They buy it. They don't know any different.
And then they regret it, probably.
Well, they probably don't know what they're missing.
Well,
right, is one thing.
Maybe.
But it's our it's our goal to kind of educate everybody about this. So, for me, benchmarking totally changes. Like, I can't use any of the tools that I'm used to using to benchmark games sold through the Windows Store.
Yep.
Fraps doesn't work. Our frame rating capture system doesn't work.
We can capture, we just can't capture.
We can capture, but we can't force an overlay into the game.
Yeah.
And I should say that even with DirectX 12, Ashes of Singularity, not a Microsoft Store game, the only reason we were able to capture that is because the guys at Oxide were awesome enough to integrate the FCAT overlay into the game engine itself.
Yeah.
They did that. So you put a TAC FCAT on the launch property, and it runs with the overlay. Now the problem with that is, it wasn't set up perfectly the first time. So we kind of had to go in there and help them and say, actually you need to do this color and this pattern. Yeah. And then they send us different EXEs. And we're like, okay, great, this works now. But
and it still doesn't work perfectly because we don't even know
we can't test AMD on it.
Well, not just that, but there's some things that were like occasionally flipping frames or something on you.
Frames are going backwards, but that's not related to FCAT. Actually, FCAT is what helped us find that.
Right. Yeah.
And it doesn't work on AMD. But like Gears of War came out.
Mm-hmm.
They integrated a benchmark mode. It's not a good one. The results are bad, at least. I won't say the benchmark mode is bad. But like they didn't integrate any of the tools that I would like to see, like exporting frame times.
Yeah.
Or giving us an overlay or doing something like that. So benchmarking in these kind of exclusive titles is going to be very different, and there's still a lot of value in that. Right.
In being able to benchmark them.
And being able to quantify things that you see and feel in a game.
Yeah. And this isn't to say that this is the end of the world. Microsoft has already addressed the fact that VSync off isn't a thing. Like, they said they're going to fix VSync, which we assume will make VSync off work as people expect. They're getting a lot of backlash on this. They're saying they're going to address stuff.
Right.
Windows 10 is a moving target. They're constantly updating, so it's possible this stuff will change very soon.
Right. Now, there was another thing that I published as he scrolls through his own website about an announcement from Phil Spencer, who is the head of Xbox gaming at Microsoft, talking about like merging PC and Xbox gaming. And there was a really good story, a great write-up over at The Guardian where they took a bunch of quotes from him, and I basically took some of their quotes and then made my commentary after it. And the idea is to have universal platform, universal Windows platform, universal Windows apps, the idea of being able to honestly believe that a mobile device and a PC and an Xbox can all run the same application. The experience will be close to the same. You'll have a similar experience either way. That's a positive goal to have.
They've been pushing that for a long time.
Yeah, well, they actually, Microsoft, when they first were launching Windows 10, I went to a developer conference on that a couple months back that work let me go to. They're trying to unify all the platforms into basically what they want to do is they want to do a single binary. Because right now, under pre-Windows 10, Windows 8, Windows 7, whatever, when you're building stuff, you have to build separate binaries and actually separate releases per platform. So one for mobile, one for Xbox One, one for PC, blah blah blah. What they want to do is they're actually integrating the different platform settings into the base binaries so that you can compile once, and then the settings files are picked up based on what platform you're running on. So you can configure the screen size to run on mobile, so that you have different fonts, different screen size, whatever,
right.
And then you can use the same binaries and run it on a Windows 10 PC desktop, and it'll run fine because it's set. A lot of that, a lot of that push is for web-based apps and stuff, but they're going to do the same thing for games and such as well, I would think. Because it makes sense.
This is arguably how this should all work, right? It's just the fact that Microsoft needs to let PC games function as PC games within UWP apps and allow third-party hooks to do things like overlays. That would solve everything. It's not the fact that it's a UWP app necessarily. It's the fact that they haven't built in the hooks to do the things that the game should be able to do.
Correct. But my argument in the second piece is that they probably can't do that completely.
Why not?
Because
I think some of that stuff should have been baked in a while. Like, they should have had foresight.
I mean, yes, I would agree with you there, but I think more just like of a QA issue is the problem, right? QAing PC is really tough.
Yeah.
It's tougher than a console, right?
Yeah.
And any developer will tell you that. And so what Microsoft is kind of trying to do by forcing people down a composition path, by having certain driver restrictions and kind of changing some things in DirectX 12 is they're trying to like minimize their work or minimize their chance of failure of actually being able to QA these things and get them to all function correctly,
I guess.
And so, your ability to enable VSync and disable VSync completely and go into these exclusive full screen modes where you can't run the overlays that Microsoft wants you to be able to run in order to have the experience you want you to have is kind of like they either have to, I believe, I don't know if there's a middle ground. I think you either have to let the PC do what it's been doing, or you have to like put a hard line in the sand and say, we're going to do it our way. And if AMD and NVIDIA and Intel, you guys want to sell graphics cards into this ecosystem, you can do that. Because the other thing that Phil Spencer announced is that they plan on upgrading Xbox hardware now. They're not going to like make it a 7-year cycle. They want to go like, we think your console should improve at the rate of your cell phone.
So there'll be like a Gen 2, Gen 3, Gen 4 of the same thing.
Which can only be a positive for us as PC gamers.
Sure.
Right? We always worry about the console holding us back. Right? The console hardware today is already holding us back. It's limited in its performance capability.
Yeah.
And if they can improve on that, then that gives game developers a higher target minimum baseline to go to. Right? And same thing going forward. Now you get all kinds of other things that could happen with that would be negative, but the potential there is.
So let's say Microsoft built in API hooks to do overlays. Would not running an exclusive full screen mode be a big deal at that point? And they allowed VSync tearing. Like, those are the two main concessions here.
They also have
you wouldn't care if it was
variable
running
refresh. They have to make variable refresh work. But assuming they made all those things work, like that's,
if they made everything
game doesn't
work,
need to run
sure.
Microsoft, like your QA argument's somewhat true, but if Microsoft was building in these hooks, then they could unit test these hooks and QA stuff.
Yeah,
it's the fact that Fraps is hooking onto a random DLL and injecting code and doing God knows what. That's an issue.
Fraps actually like intercepts the whole frame buffer, puts something on it, and then passes the frame buffer back on.
It's injecting onto a DLL.
Yeah.
Alan,
it is.
I mean, like that's how that works, right?
Yeah, it's similar, but it's just with a frame buffer instead of with a DLL.
Yeah. Because that's how the frame rating overlay works.
Yeah,
it's doing the exact same thing.
Yeah,
like and that's what kind of bugs me about all this so much is that like, okay, Microsoft had to have known that all that stuff was a thing, right?
Yeah.
And then they're like, okay, we're going to do this DX12 stuff. We're going to have these exclusive games, and we're going to make the games run in this full screen windowed thing, right? Like, seriously, could there not have been a person that raised their hand and went, hey, like, we should be doing all the same things that everybody else already does?
They had great success with Halo 2 and Vista.
See, exactly, right? It's just like, somebody must have, like, brought that up, you would think.
It's not the same thing as Halo 2
It's not
and
the
Vista.
same thing,
It's not anywhere near
but
the
it's
same
the same thought process and decision-making ability.
No, it's not.
I think it's similar.
Halo 2 and Vista was a pure business decision. Let's make people upgrade to Vista. That was exactly what that was. Let's make it DX10 only. Let's make people upgrade to Vista. Let's not put DX10 on XP. This is a different Microsoft trying to make technology better. They don't quite understand what PC gamers want, and that's why the backlash that people are giving them.
Yeah, but like Games for Windows Live was their attempt to make it better as well. You know, you could make the argument that there's no reason DirectX 12 should be Windows 10 exclusive, right? That would be a business decision to push people there. I don't know if that's true or not.
Well, it's like the fact that the Xbox and the PC are kind of sharing a code base at this point may make that a way more reasonable thing than backporting it. Like the Xbox games and Windows games in 5 years should both be universal binaries. You should just be able to play anything either place.
Yeah, especially if they upgrade Xbox hardware at a higher cadence.
Yeah.
Then I don't see a problem with that. But I don't know if
I think we will get there.
I don't know if they're committed enough to what people like about PC gaming in order to, like, for me to believe that they're going to do that the right way. I think they have to prove it more than us just believe it. They've had too many instances of it going the wrong direction.
So far, it is the wrong direction. Like, they're totally not proving it so far.
I mean, we need to give them a chance to prove it. They say they're going to make it better. So.
You're right. But
maybe the design, you know, let's expand upon this a little bit and go beyond where your article is talking.
All right.
When leveraging AMD and their technology and saying, hey, we want this, 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 and this, can you make a chip for us? And they do a design using all of their technology that they have implemented in previous products, and they put it in one package.
Right.
Is it now so much cheaper than what they previously experienced with the Xbox and the Xbox 360, where there was so much design work in so many different places? Now they can just go to AMD and say, hey, could you do this, 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 and this in a recipe? I mean, obviously it's not entirely that easy, but it's got to be easier than trying to milk out everything over a 7-year period.
Yes, agreed.
Well, but you also have market pressure, though. If Sony's not updating the PS4, why should Microsoft update the Xbox? And you know that saying that kills me as a technologist, because I love upgrading my hardware. I want the fastest, biggest thing I can afford, much to my wife's ire. But seriously, if there's no market pressure, it's just like any other market. If there's no market pressure, look at prime examples. What Intel did with the CPU market. Look how much it slowed down since AMD went kaput. Well, they didn't go kaput in the CPU market, but they basically slowed down a lot. Intel had no pressure, so they stopped innovating quickly.
Right.
Xbox, PS4, same thing. One counterpoint I wanted to make, though, was with DX11. How long did it take from when DX11 launched to when it became fully embraced? Because we were probably looking at the same thing with DX12. That one took a long time.
Well, it's interesting. I don't think it will be on the same time span. DX11 took a long time.
There's more motivation for people to move.
Actually, maybe
to
it's DX10 that took forever.
DX10 took forever. DX11 was such a positive experience as compared to 10 that it was pretty quickly
I think embraced. The move to 12 will be relatively quick as well. Now, what pathway of 12? Because there's still like the 12 that kind of acts like 11, and then there's the 12 that acts like a brand new API. And what the restrictions are of either are still unknown. I think this is a really complicated topic. Obviously, I'm trying very hard to get somebody from Microsoft that's like willing to come on and have like a worthwhile conversation with us about it. I tried to get Phil Spencer to come on our stream on Sunday, and so far he has not replied.
I don't think that those guys even know what answers they want to say to anybody right now. That may be true and honest. That may be honestly true, right? That they don't know yet what their answers are.
Yeah. Can I posit this thought?
You can try.
Probably.
Posit away.
I'm not saying that they meant it to do this, but they're putting their foot forward with DX12 and everything going through the compositing engine in Windows 10. And obviously, you're going to have a multitude of developers who say, you know what, this is not the right way to do that. And here's why. Someone kind of had to make a move. I mean, yeah, we had AMD with Mantle, and now we've got Vulkan. Mm-hmm. But they don't seriously change the technology like DX12 sort of is, especially in how it relates to all of the underlying technology and how it is presented to the end user in, this one screen, 3 screens, however many, and the experience going against, possibly FreeSync and G-Sync. Do you think that they're going to be agile enough to take the good with the bad and adjust their solution?
I think it's way more likely now than it was when Games for Windows Live launched. I don't think we're looking at the same Microsoft. Windows 10 they're not like Windows XP, Windows 7. They never really got major upgrades to the functionality of the operating system until a service pack.
Yeah,
now it's a rolling target that they keep constantly improving, and they say this is the OS we're going to stick with, and they're pushing it. They want 10 million people to have it installed or whatever this year. Like, I don't think this is a whim. I think this is something that was half baked and kind of pushed out because, like, Gears of War launched as a surprise yesterday.
Well, it was not a surprise to like Microsoft. It was a surprise to hardware vendors and gamers and software vendors.
Microsoft is a large corporation. Doesn't mean both heads were necessarily talking to each other. It was like it was a.
I think it would be. I think it would be a mistake to assume that the people that were releasing the game weren't also the people that like kind of knew about these discussions that were happening.
Oh, I don't think the people who decided to release the game are people who know about DirectX exclusive flip modes.
Yeah.
I don't know if that's true.
I think that is very foolish to think about.
I would think I would bet that Phil Spencer directly was involved in all of those decisions, right? Or people directly underneath him. So
now, like, can you make a DirectX 12 game that does not have to run?
Yes. So the only statement I've actually gotten from Microsoft officially at this point is that there's no reason why a game developer can't still make an exclusive full screen game.
Okay.
Right.
That makes me feel somewhat
Now,
better.
when I asked about Windows Store stuff, like any ability to do that in the future, they're like, blah blah blah. We're still developing it.
Locked down or whatever. And,
right. So, but there's no reason at this point that if you buy a DirectX 12 game through Steam, it should not have exclusive full screen. So back to the original thing at this topic, probably AMD has an issue with their driver that they need to fix in order to enable the exclusive full screen.
So
mode.
all that
we would not have had any of this.
It's hilarious how that all forced this.
But even if you can do pure full screen on DX12, you still have the overlay issue, right?
Yes.
You can't hook into DX12.
That is correct. Okay. Yes, you still have that. It's a different can of worms than the store can of worms, but it is still a small worm can.
Yeah, it's significant for benchmarking standpoint.
It is.
But,
yes.
Yeah.
Anyways, I'll stop talking. The comments will tear me apart, I'm sure.
So